off.
How's it going, guys? I'm Chris, and this is Regular Guy Training. Today we're actually going to talk about this guy. Now, you guys have seen these lights a bunch of times. Either, you noticed them or you didn't, or I would have students notice them and that kind of stuff, and before too terribly long, they ended up just kind of placeholders because we got a lot of different guns with a lot of different setups and that kind of thing. They ended up placeholders for better lights, right? So that kind of gives away more or less the review on this, because first and foremost, I like Streamlight's handgun light. The 1000 lumen HL is a pretty solid handgun light. I'm not a big fan of these, and the reason why I'm not a big fan of these is, between just a bunch of students that I've had in the past and that kind of stuff, and when they came out, I bought a few of them, and because they were pretty cheap and they put out pretty good light to start, right? And this is like a while ago, right? Like when I was still living in the Tampa area a while ago. So, when they came out, I bought a few of them and that kind of stuff because they were putting out pretty solid light, and they were pretty cheap, and as far as their handgun lights were concerned, like, they worked good. So I just figured, why not, right? Turns out a bunch of people that I know, I also did that too. What is kind of funny is that this is more of a review as far as just like the evolution of the lights themselves and how well they had done and everything else, because just the entire time that they've been in circulation, I guess, with us, I haven't really been impressed. Everybody has seen a light die in a rifle, especially if you go to like real high volume classes, or you're training a lot, or especially if your light is like right on top of your muzzle device, basically, where it's like even with your muzzle device. Either it's for extension, or you just don't have a lot of rail space, so you need to scoot things out a little bit further forward and that kind of stuff, right? So there's a lot of exposure as far as the lights being on rifles, like basically right on top of their muzzle devices, where the blast from dual port brakes or whatever would take the coatings off of them, that kind of thing. But mostly, I haven't really been impressed, and it's actually on several different levels. The first really has to do with these little tape switches. Now, I've been through a few of these, and the reason why this guy is taped down more than anything else is like the stock stuff that it comes with is just not very impressive as far as, keeping the pressure pad on the rail itself. It's made out of a pretty light rubber, so a lot of heat or a lot of cold or a lot of back and forth between the two, they start coming apart a little bit. That's how you end up with one that's still working, and then you're taping down the rest of the switch. Also, just the electronics package for it is not very good. Before too terribly long, we noticed that on the pads themselves, and there's an updated one that is about no better, where you start messing with that pressure pad, and after a while you notice, hey, this thing looks like it's running out of battery all the time. I think it's some sort of connection issue or something, because if you have a pressure pad on here that's a little bit older, what you end up running into is like a lack of output from what the light's capable of, which is odd, right? So whatever lumens, you're rated for, coming out of the box, it's like halved, which is not very good. That's not great. In addition to this, the glass on these is actually glass instead of an acrylic, and it's not very well affixed. This is like the last surviving one. Between me and a few friends, there was like 7 total lights. Yeah, we bought way in because it's like, hey, Streamlight, it's worked good for us, so we would buy a bunch. So this is like the last working one in like 7 of them. And if you listen just a little bit, that's that glass shifting around. It's not going to last too terribly long. And I have seen lenses, just come loose or start wiggling around in there and that kind of stuff, which is not very great, honestly. So as far as output and electronics package, it's not very good. In addition to this, we're also talking like total failures of the lights. Like you press a switch, instead of it turning on, it just fails to turn on. We have noticed that compared to like, Surefire, which I have seen die on guns before, it's significantly less, but I have seen them die on guns before. Compared to, for instance, Surefire, and especially if you're comparing it to Mod Light, which seems, at least right now anyway, to be one of the toughest lights out on the market for like a rifle. The failure rate is just much, much higher. If you have this light, I mean, because of, you know, just whatever restrictions that your current handguard or whatever are putting on you, if you have this anywhere near like a muzzle device or even with it, and we've noticed this with, you know, flash suppressors or brakes or hybrid muzzle devices or whatever, it's not going to last very long up there. This is especially prevalent in, you know, a class I did, it was like a year ago, right, where it was sort of a specialty class where a bunch of dudes that knew a bunch of stuff, we went out and, you know, we basically, you know, I basically put together a difficult set of like 4 days. It was like 1,000 rounds a day, a night shoot each day. So it was pretty tough on equipment as well. And what we noticed more than anything else is, yeah, we lost a Surefire light out there, but like anybody that was walking around with one of these, nah, done. Right? And the reason why that's especially prevalent is that it's not like military units around the world are adopting things like this, but you do see them on a lot of like law enforcement, SWAT types, that kind of stuff, and a lot of personal rifles. So I get a lot of questions about them, and as far as the field report goes, it's not very good. It's not very good because, especially, you know, compared to all the other stuff on a lot of different guns that works well, and yeah, obviously this is the newest thing on the gun. A review on this is coming. But compared to a lot of stuff that I've seen just get wore out on guns before, the electronics package just for shock on these lights, from like recoil and that kind of stuff, is just not very good. I've seen them just straight up turn off and stay off. And it's not just on ARs either, it's on like AKs and stuff too, because anything that you mount to a handguard on an AK is going to have a much harder life than anything that you mount to a handguard on an AR, for instance. What is kind of worse too is that with these, it's not just like a lack of output either, and I'm talking about the pressure switch. Sometimes it just decides when it's going to turn on and when it's going to turn off a light, which is not exactly optimal. It sort of defeats the purpose for a pressure switch in the first place. And I've noticed that over time, you suffer basically the same fate if you're using like their updated pressure switch, because it did turn one out and it's got a little bit of fencing up front on the button there, which I don't even agree with in the first place. But it's not much better, you know. So, and I've noticed this a lot with a lot of different like Protac rail-mounted lights and that kind of stuff, is just, it's not there. It's not there. We're not talking like O-light quality where like out of the box you're expecting it to die before your class is over or whatever. But it's not that good. It's not much better. I mean, it'll last longer, sure, but like with all the other problems that I've listed, it's just not very good. So for those of you that have asked me about a million questions about it and I just kind of kept on forgetting about it, for those of you that are considering putting one of these on there, just save the extra coin, put a Surefire or a mod light on your gun and call it good. Okay, so I mean that's pretty much all I have on that. As you know, by the way, a bunch of new classes did get released. We're going to places like Ohio, Pennsylvania. We're going to, we're going to Georgia. Another vehicle class got put up here in Drakesboro, Kentucky, as well as a mechanical set. So mechanical rifle and pistol are gonna go down here in Drakesboro, Kentucky. So, you know, there's a bunch of stuff that's out there. If you want to come out and train with us, you absolutely can. If you want to throw a couple of bucks at us on Patreon to help kind of keep this thing going, you can absolutely do that too. If you want that to work for you as well, $41 a month gets you as much training as you want with us as possible, unless it is something logistically heavy like a vehicle class, for instance, in which case, unfortunately, that's about the only time that doesn't work out. That, and I do private classes now, and that is taking up a little bit of my time lately. So like between that, my son, and the Army, I have been a little more occupied. I'm not dead. The channel isn't going away. None of that. But, you know, so that is what it is. But if it's not a private class and if it's not a vehicle class, there you go. It's as much training as you want for $41 a month, especially if we come through your locale on a regular basis. So if you want to check that out, you can. If you want to check us out on Facebook, link is in the description below. And remember, a regular guy's firearm is the last defense against tyranny. Be easy.